Imagine for a second that you are trying to get rid of your own ego.
Right, like we all do at some point.
Exactly. So you sit down, you close your eyes, and you focus all your energy on, eliminating your selfishness.
You're trying to shut down that constant, exhausting voice in your head, making everything about you.
Yeah, you are really doing the work. But then right in the middle of this intense effort, you realize something incredibly frustrating.
Oh, I know where this is going.
The harder you try to destroy your ego, the stronger it actually seems to get.
Yeah, because it's a trap.
Right. Because the very you that is trying so hard to achieve this spiritual victory is exactly the ego you are trying to destroy. It's a closed loop.
It's actually the ultimate psychological paradox. I mean, the moment you declare war on yourself, you're occupying two contradictory roles at the exact same time.
You're the attacker and the defender.
Exactly. And no matter who wins that battle, well, the ego survives.
And that paradox is the core of today's deep dive. We're looking at a really fascinating transcript from the official J. Krishnamurti YouTube channel.
It's a profoundly interesting one, too.
It really is. It features a conversation between the philosopher J. Krishnamurti and another speaker, and the whole discussion centers on this radical concept of emptying the mind of the me.
Right, the me.
Yeah, and our mission today is to figure out why standard methods of self-improvement might actually be making our ego stronger, and how we might achieve a state they call choiceless awareness.
Which is so tough in a world that demands we constantly analyze ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. It's constant.
But to set the proper foundation, the listener really needs to understand that this is a purely philosophical journey we're taking today.
Yeah, we aren't dealing with clinical psychology here.
No, not at all. Or the typical self-help advice you'd find in a bookstore. There's no, list of morning affirmations here.
Definitely no 5-minute journal prompts.
Exactly. This material questions the very core of how we perceive reality, how we construct our identities, and our fundamental place in the world.
It asks us to step completely outside of our normal everyday frameworks.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start by figuring out what these sources actually mean by the me.
That's a crucial starting point.
Because my initial assumption was pretty narrow. I think of the me as my personality, my name, maybe my physical reflection in the mirror.
Sure, the standard definition.
Right. But the transcript takes a much wider, almost, terrifyingly comprehensive view.
It defines the me as the entire content of our consciousness.
Literally everything. Our memories, our ambitions, our greed, the desire for security, pleasure, sex, all of that is categorized as the ego.
And the transcript pushes it even further, actually, crossing into territory that challenges a lot of traditional spiritual thinkers.
Yeah, big time.
Because the me includes your concepts of a higher self, a lower self, and even the concept of the soul.
Wait, really? Even the soul?
Yeah, every conceptual ideation you have about yourself, every category you place yourself into, including your nationality, your political affiliations, your career title.
That's intense. So if I decide I'm a deeply spiritual person who meditates, that identity is just another piece of the me.
Exactly. It's just a different outfit the ego is wearing.
Wow. So it's essentially the entire resume of our existence, including the parts we consider noble or enlightened.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the transcript explains the mechanical danger of this massive accumulation of content.
Why is it so dangerous?
Because as long as this me remains in your consciousnness, it naturally generates separation. It creates this rigid wall between you and the rest of the world.
Oh, I see. It creates the division between good and bad, or us and them.
Right. And the sources argue that wherever there is division, there simply must be conflict.
Political conflict, religious conflict, interpersonal conflict.
Yeah, all of it. It all stems from the psychological division created by the me. True freedom, or what the text calls the flowering of reality, just cannot exist as long as the ego dominates the space.
Okay, I'm tracking with the problem. The me causes division. Division causes conflict.
Exactly.
So the logical next step is to ask for the blueprint, right? We are conditioned to want the step-by-step method.
Of course we are. It's how we're raised.
Right. If I have a habit of being overly defensive, I read a book, I find a 10-step plan, I practice it for a month, and I improve.
That's the modern way.
But when I read this transcript looking for the method to dismantle the ego, well, there isn't one. In fact, they say the method itself is the problem.
That is the most radical premise of the entire conversation, I think.
It blew my mind a little bit.
The transcript is adamant about this. The ending of the me cannot be a process. It cannot be a method. and it is not a matter of gradual time.
You can't just chip away at your flaws day by day.
No. Trying to suppress, control, or discipline the ego away is explicitly described as a blind alley. They say it's all out.
My entire Western upbringing is screaming at me right now.
I know, it goes against everything we're taught.
I was taught that to achieve any goal, you exert effort over time. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized the trap they are describing.
It's a huge trap.
It's like trying to mop up a puddle while your mop is soaking wet. You are just spreading the water around.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right. If I decide to exert tremendous effort to throw out my ego, it is still the ego doing the throwing. You can't use the ego to destroy the ego.
The wet mop analogy is close, but it's actually a bit more hopeless than that.
Oh, really? How so?
You aren't just spreading the water. The mop itself is made of water. In the transcript, the other speaker suggests to Krishnamurti that we must, quote, destroy the monster at one step.
And Krishnamurti rejects that, right?
Immediately. He rejects the word destroy entirely. Destruction implies a violent exertion of will and effort directed by the me.
Because if you violently suppress your desires, you've just created a new ego that prides itself on its extreme discipline.
Exactly. The ending of the me must happen instantly, without methodology and completely without effort.
But, I mean, if we can't use a method and we can't use a process and we absolutely cannot use our own willpower, we are left in a terrifying spot.
We really are.
We are just sitting there with our messy, divisive egos doing absolutely nothing. If we can't act, how does this happen? The brain hates a vacuum.
It does.
What are these sources suggesting we do with that empty space?
Well, they offer an alternative that operates before we even reach the stage of intellectual action or effort.
Okay, what is it?
The alternative is simply seeing.
Simply seeing. It sounds almost mystical.
It does, but the transcript uses a very grounded example to explain it. They talk about looking at a tree.
Right, the tree example. They challenge the listener to consider whether they can look at a tree without their botanical knowledge stepping in.
Which is surprisingly hard to do.
It really is. Can you look at it without the word tree popping into your head? Without thinking about oak or pine or the process of photosynthesis?
Without any of your prior conditioning. Just pure, raw observation of the thing in front of you.
And what's fascinating here is the jump they make from looking at a tree to looking at humanity.
Yes. That's where the philosophy becomes intensely practical.
Right. The transcript argues that our minds are bedeviled with images.
Bedeviled with images. I love that phrasing.
Me too. It means when you interact with someone, you aren't actually interacting with them as a living, changing human being.
No, you are interacting with the static image you have built of them over time.
Let's apply that to a real-world scenario for the listener, because this is where it really clicks for me.
Yeah, give me an example.
Think about an argument with a partner about, say, leaving the dishes in the sink. You aren't actually arguing with your partner about those specific dishes.
Right, it's never just about the dishes.
Exactly. You are arguing with the ghost of the 400 previous times they left the dishes out. You're fighting a historical category of that person.
That is so true. And the transcript does concede that memory, which is knowledge, is necessary for practical functions.
Like driving a car or knowing your own address.
Right. But it draws a hard line when it comes to relationships. Memory, acting as an image, has absolutely no place in a relationship between human beings.
Because the moment that memory or image is present, the wall of division is back.
Exactly. You are no longer seeing the person in the present moment. You are seeing your accumulated past with them.
So simply seeing is the antidote.
Yes. The text suggests that the simple, highly energetic act of seeing the world as it actually is, whether it is violent, brutal, or beautiful, without translating it through your concepts, is the key.
Just pure perception.
Pure perception.
Okay.
That is the very act that empties the mind of the me. You see the inadequacy of the ego, and the very act of seeing it, without trying to change it, dissolves it.
You see the world, as they phrase it playfully at one point, as it is ising.
Is inning.
Yeah. But as soon as I grasp this concept of simply seeing, my reflex is to immediately analyze what I've just seen.
Oh, of course. We all do that.
Like if I manage to purely observe my own jealousy, my instinct is to take it apart. Why am I jealous? Let me trace this back to my childhood. Let me figure out how to fix it.
We want to put ourselves under a microscope.
We do. Yet the sources strictly warn against this. They basically treat analysis like it's radioactive.
They do, because the mind is deeply trained to be analytical. We are conditioned by science and education to take things apart to understand them.
Which works for cars and computers, right?
Sure, but the sources argue that in the realm of the psyche, analysis is an absurd and dangerous detour.
Why is it so dangerous?
First, analysis takes time, which means it becomes a process. And we've already established that the ending of the me cannot be a gradual process.
Right, it has to be instant.
Second, analysis inherently fragments the self. It takes your consciousness and chops it into little pieces to be examined by an analyzer.
But wait, the analyzer is just another fragment of the me.
Exactly. You're dividing yourself further, which completely destroys the ability to see yourself in your fullness.
Okay, so if analysis fragments the self, and trying to fix the self is just the ego wearing a new mask, we are back to that uncomfortable vacuum.
We are.
What replaces all of this mental gymnastics?
Well, the transcript introduces the core philosophy that anchors this entire discussion.
Yeah.
They call it choiceless awareness.
Choiceless awareness.
Yes. Instead of analyzing your jealousy or your ambition, you must practice choiceless awareness. This means watching the whole movement of yourself.
The good and the bad.
All of it. The hypocrisy, the tricks you play, the deeply buried unconscious thoughts. You watch it without correcting it.
You don't try to steer the ship at all.
No. You don't look at a thought and say, this is ugly, or I must change this.
Yeah.
You are just watching.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I have to push back on this. The phrase choiceless awareness feels like a huge contradiction to me.
I think a lot of people feel that way initially.
Because we practically worship choice. I mean, we associate choice with freedom.
We definitely do.
The ability to choose who we are, what we do, how we react to our emotions, that is the very definition of a free life in modern society. How can they argue that choice is something we need to abandon?
Well, the other speaker in the transcript brings up that exact objection. He notes that society equates choice with freedom.
And what does Krishnamurti say?
Krishnamurti calls this association absurd.
Well, absurd.
Well,
Yes.
choice, according to this philosophy, is the antithesis of freedom. Choice implies duality, limitation, and effort. Furthermore, choice implies conformity and imitation.
Conformity. I struggled with that initially, but let me see if I have the mechanics of it right.
Go for it.
If I feel anger rising up and I choose to be kind instead, I am conforming to a concept of kindness. I am imitating an ideal of what a good person does.
Exactly. You aren't actually kind in that moment. You're just putting on the costume of kindness.
And because I am imitating an ideal, I am constantly trying to live up to something I am not, which creates internal conflict.
That is the exact mechanism. You are substituting one fragment of the me for another fragment that you find more socially acceptable.
But I'm still fragmented.
Exactly. Now, the sources do concede that choice exists at a basic material level. Like Krishnamurti gives the example of choosing one carpet over another because it's physically better.
Okay, so we're not talking about, like, choosing what's for dinner.
Right. But in the realm of inward awareness, choice is a process of the intellect. It is the ego operating again, trying to curate a better version of itself.
We need to demystify this, though. For you listening right now, what is the literal split-second cognitive step of practicing choiceless awareness?
That's a great question.
If we aren't choosing and we aren't analyzing, what is actually happening in the brain?
Let's walk through a concrete example. Say you're in a meeting and a coworker blatantly takes credit for your idea.
Oh, that's infuriating.
Right. Immediately, a hot, tight physical sensation flares up in your chest. That is the raw reality.
And pure anger.
Yes. But within a millisecond, your brain starts weaving a narrative. It pulls up the history of this coworker.
They always do this to me.
Exactly. It projects into the future about your career. It starts forming a plan for revenge or defense. That narrative is the me stepping in.
So what is the alternative in that exact moment?
Choiceless awareness is the act of staying entirely with the hot, tight feeling in your chest without taking that next cognitive step into the story.
Just feeling the physical heat.
Yes, you feel the physical reality of the anger, but you do not attach the psychological narrative of why you were angry or what you should do about it.
You literally hit pause on the narrative machine.
Precisely.
You don't push the anger away, which would be effort, and you don't justify it, which would be analysis. You just let it sit there in the light of your awareness.
And without the fuel of the story, the anger and the ego attached to it dissolves.
It just fades away.
It dissolves because there's no resistance sustaining it. There's actually a poignant moment in the transcript that cuts to the heart of this. The question is asked, is there choice in love?
Oh, wow. And what's the answer?
The answer is an immediate no.
That makes so much sense.
Right. When you truly love, You don't weigh the pros and cons and make an intellectual decision to extend love to someone. The love simply is.
It's an act of existence rather than an act of the mind.
Exactly. To be choicelessly aware means to watch your surroundings and your inward motives without thought pushing you in any particular direction.
It is a precognitive state that completely antecedes choice, making choice entirely unnecessary.
Which brings us to the ultimate result of this practice.
So what does this all mean? What's the end game here?
When you possess this quality of mind that is free from the historical me, and you are observing the world with choiceless attention, all separation vanishes.
The wall between you and the other comes down.
Yes. The crucial point the sources make is that you don't sit there and conceptually think, ah, yes, we are all one.
Because that would just be another thought, another concept.
Exactly. Instead, you actually discover unity as a living, breathing reality. The psychological conflict that defines human existence is extinguished because the division that caused it is gone.
Think about the relevance of this for a second, especially in a world defined by constant categorization.
It's incredibly relevant today.
We are bombarded with information, forced to choose sides, forced to define our personal brands, forced to analyze every interaction. We live in an exhaustingly noisy society.
We do. And this transcript offers a radical, peaceful alternative.
It invites you to drop the categories. Drop the need to constantly curate your ego, stop analyzing yourself into tiny, fragmented pieces, and just simply be aware.
It is a fundamentally different way of existing. It requires tremendous honesty and the willingness to give up the comfort of the labels we use to protect ourselves.
We really do use our identities as armor.
We do. And this philosophy asks us to stand without armor. But the reward is the end of internal conflict.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day, something that builds on this extraordinary conversation.
I'd love to hear it.
We've established that true awareness requires absolutely no choice, no memory, and no reliance on past images.
Right.
If that is true, does that mean your truest, most authentic self only actually exists in the exact fleeting duration of the present moment?
Oh, that's a deep question.
Does the real you disappear the very second you try to remember it, analyze it, or define it for someone else?
It forces us to ask how much of our lives we spend living in the echoes of who we were, rather than the reality of who we are right now.
If the ego is a trap, maybe the only way out is to stop trying to build a better trap and just walk out the open door.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the philosophy of J. Krishnamurti. Keep questioning your categories. Keep exploring the boundaries of your own awareness.
And remember, the next time you try to violently destroy your own ego, check to make sure you aren't just giving it a new set of armor.
So true. Until next time.